Could Brock Boeser become a Boston Bruin next season? He isn't going to be back in Vancouver next year, and he's the one that told us. Should the Bruins give an offer sheet to Matthew Knies? I'm going to discuss both of these topics in today's video. So buckle up, Bruins fans. I'm here to give you the latest info on your beloved Boston Bruins. If you've been liking my Bruins content, please leave me a like and subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you, and let's get into it. Brock Boeser spoke to the media and dropped a bombshell in Vancouver that, frankly, we all should have seen coming. Brock Boeser told the media that he doesn't expect to return to Vancouver next season. Boeser, who is 28 and in the final year of his contract, currently making $6.5 million per season and will be an unrestricted free agent this summer. When he spoke to Sportsnet, Boeser had this to say. Honestly, it's unlikely at this point. It stinks. It's unfortunate. I'm just trying to play a good hockey. And while then I worry about everything after that. We all know it's been a roller coaster of a year. There's been a lot of different things. I didn't even know that Boeser is the longest running Canuck currently on their roster, being in Vancouver since his rookie season in 2016-17. That's not a long time. The relationship, though, hasn't been sunshine and rainbows throughout his career in Vancouver. Boeser added that he isn't even talking to his agent right now and said, "Yeah, I'm refusing to talk to Hank right now," he said. "I feel like I'm playing a lot better hockey recently, and I don't want to get distracted." That's one of the things I've learned. When there's distractions, I don't play my best hockey. The mental aspect of the game is so important. This year, there's been a lot of distractions. Boeser's contract talks have been a topic of conversation all season in Vancouver, and it's been a bit of a soap opera. Reminds me a lot of the Swayman stuff that we had last summer. Rumors swirled at the trade deadline that he could be on the move. When he talked to the media around the trade deadline, he said, "I understand it's a business. I feel like I'm a pretty loyal guy, and I feel like that should speak for itself. But it's a business, and that's just how things operate. We all know the three options that could happen before the deadline: trade, re-sign, or neither. If nothing happens on July 1 come around, I still think I'm in a good spot as a UFA. But I've talked to you and definitely been open about that, how much I love it in Vancouver. So yeah, it's actually frustrating that nothing is going to get done." With all the drama in Vancouver this season, the Boeser contract talks just added fuel to the fire. And Vancouver had a disappointing season. According to Frank Saravelli from the Daily Faceoff, Boeser rejected an 8 times $5 million offer from the Vancouver Canucks during the season, but it was rumored it was more about the term and not the dollar amount. In 71 games this season, Boeser scored 25 goals and tallied 24 assists for 49 points. 16 of those goals were on even strength. Boeser is known as a power play specialist and would be something the Bruins desperately need. Boeser scored 40 goals last season, and he has a killer release. He's a goal scorer through and through, and say the Bruins add him this offseason, they would give him a killer 1-2 punch on the right side and add more scoring to the lineup that they desperately need. Ty Anderson from the Sports Hub in Boston recently said, "And so I think they're going to be big-time players, and I look at things like this. The business model isn't hurting, but if you want to keep this kind of roster, they have season tickets waiting lists, but ticket prices in Boston have gone up 13% over the last 2 years. I believe it's the second highest in the United States behind Madison Square Garden. So fans want a reason to come to games. What you have right now is not a reason to come to games. So I think the star power is really lacking, and for that reason, I expect them to try and make a move for big-time players in free agency because that's when ownership gets their eyebrows raised a little bit, when the business suffers. And it hasn't happened yet, but if they roll out of this roster in the fall, it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt them in a big way. I have to agree with Ty, knowing the Bruins organization, that management means it when they say it's a retool. And it wasn't a coincidence they moved out all their cap space at the trade deadline. I spoke about Marner in a previous video and how I think the Bruins will kick tires in him. But I think Boeser is a much more viable option. One of the reasons I say this is because the Bruins tried to acquire him back in 2021 and had conversations with the Canucks right before the shutdown. The Bruins had a framework of the deal to send Danton Heinen and Matt Grzelcyk to Vancouver for Brock Boeser. Boeser has always been in trade chatter around Vancouver, and Boston at the time wanted to add his scoring on the right side. When the pandemic hit, it made it very difficult for teams to make trades, and the conversation died, but the interest from the Bruins has never gone away. Heck, I probably assume that the Bruins tried to kick tires on him on this year's deadline. The Bruins have $26.2 million in cap space, and I would think they will prioritize signing Geekie, let unrestricted free agents walk, and try and re-sign Beecher, Husadinov, Lauko, Mitchell, and Mason Lowry. Those players alone are not taking up the $26 million in cap space. I wouldn't even be surprised if they try and move on from Korpisalo this offseason and call up one of either Bussy or DiPietro to be the backup after they're re-signed. Neither of those goalies would cost them $3 million per season, like Korpisalo does. And I know many people think that he's been average this year, but to be totally honest, the guy's been a disappointment through and through, and he really hasn't been that good. so they're probably going to move on from him. Lowry and Geekie are in for another considerable raises next season, with Geekie, I think, being the larger of the two. We also don't know the status of Hampus Lindholm, who didn't return this season and hasn't been skating as of late. An injury such as his could take some considerable time to cover, and he could even start next season on LTIR. All of this leaves the Bruins some money to spend, and that's why I truly don't think Marner is an option, but Brock Boeser is. The cap will continue to grow considerably over the next couple of seasons and will be $113 million by 2027-28. Boeser is still relatively young and has an asset the Bruins need, which is scoring punch and help on the power play. He's a fast skater with a high hockey IQ, and he's an underrated passer. Yes, the Bruins need help down the middle, but they also need scoring depth, and players that can score 30 goals right now, they don't grow on trees. I'm sure the Bruins will still check in on Sam Bennett, Brock Nelson, and even Nikolai Ehlers. I sure hope they even take a serious look at Brock Boeser because his playstyle and scoring punch could help the Bruins next season. Let me know what you think about the whole Brock Boeser thing. Would you want him to be signed by the Boston Bruins over the offseason? My next topic is going to be, should the Boston Bruins offer sheet Matthew Knies? I've thought about this in the past because the Leafs are going to want to sign Marner, who won't be cheap, but you know what? Matthew Knies isn't going to be cheap either. It wasn't until I was listening to the What Chaos podcast this morning until they pretty much talked my brain into it. I will leave a link to the episode I'm talking about in the description down below. So hear me out. Because I think as Bruins fans, we've all seen Matthew Knies play hockey, and I think we can all agree we like the way he plays the game. Knies, in 74 games this season, has 29 goals and 26 assists for 55 points. 24 of those 29 goals this season have been even strength, and 6 of them have been game winners. Knies is a player that isn't afraid to drive the puck to the net, park his butt in the crease, or muck it up in the corners. He's 6'3", 227 pounds, and is one of the best young power forwards in the league. Players like Knies are usually locked up on long-term contracts, and teams covet his playstyle. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a projected cap space of $27.4 million, and while they don't have a bunch of players they need to resign, the guys they do need to resign, they carry a big price tag. Notable names are Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and Matthew Knies. Now, $27 million should be enough if they want to bring all these players back, but what if a team decides to offer sheet Matthew Knies and mess that all up? I wouldn't even be surprised if a team that is serious about taking a run at Mitch Marner this offseason gives an offer sheet to Knies to price out the Leafs on Marner. Knies only makes $925,000 and is only 23 years old, but his potential is as high as they become, and he's become a key piece for the Maple Leafs' success. If you want to know how an offer sheet works, here's a brief explanation of offer sheets and compensations. We saw this offseason that offer sheets work as St. Louis did a masterclass against the Edmonton Oilers and got Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, who, by the way, have been huge pieces for the St. Louis Blues this season. When a team offer sheets a player, they usually have to overpay a slight amount to get said player because you don't want that current team to be able to match. In the case of Broberg, the Blues offered him $4.5 million per season over 2 years, and the Oilers pretty much couldn't match. At the time, even myself thought this was a huge overpay, and it turned out not to be the case at all. All the Blues had to give Edmonton in compensation was a second-round pick for Broberg based on the salary, which is a huge steal. The compensation for a player is based on the AAV a player receives. In the case of Knies, as discussed on What Chaos, you're probably looking at around $9 million per year range to either price out the Leafs or they match and they price themselves out of Mitch Marner in the process. The compensation for a $9 million per year contract is a first, a second, and a third round pick in 2026. The Bruins have all those things, which in the past they would have not, and the list of teams that do is also limited. The Bruins, though, would have to look at it one way and decide, are they going to be bad again next season if they get Matthew Knies, because the 2026 draft is the Gavin McKinnon draft, and their first round pick could turn into him. I'm sure some are already saying that there is a huge overpay for $9 million for Knies, and you might be right, but next year's salary based on his age comparables would be around $7.5 to $9 million range, especially with the cap going up considerably over the next couple years. Rope Hintz just signed an $8.4 million contract in Dallas, and he's in a no-tax state. Salaries are going up, which means fans will complain about them more, but it is what it is at this point. The real question for the Bruins, does the risk outweigh the reward? If the Leafs match, they have made a division rival have to overpay for a player now that in the end won't be an overpay, but the Leafs will possibly make them not be able to re-sign Mitch Marner. That would make the Leafs weaker next season and an advantage for the Boston Bruins. If the Leafs don't match it and the Bruins get Knies, does that upgrade on the wing enough to propel them back into the playoffs? Which means Knies plays left wing and would instantly upgrade you on the left side. So now as long as he re-signs and you have a 1-2 punch of Geekie and Knies, you would still have room to possibly upgrade on the right side behind Pasternak. Probably not Brock Boeser, though. You wouldn't be in on high-priced free agents like Boeser, Bennett, or even bring back Marchand unless he takes a team-friendly deal, which I doubt he will. But you would have your next elite power forward for the foreseeable future. Matthew Knies is a huge upgrade, and I think I would take the gamble on it. But I want to know, if you were the GM of the Boston Bruins, would you take the gamble on offer sheeting Matthew Knies? I want to leave you off with something I saw last night that kind of brought a smile to my face. Brad Marchand got his first goal as a Florida Panther, and it made me smile. Marchand was a constant warrior for the Boston Bruins over his career, and I truly hope he is back next season. To see him score in another jersey, I thought would bother me, but instead, it made me smile, so I hope it does the same for you. And honestly, I hope he wins the cup this summer. That's a wrap on today's video. To stay up to date on all the news surrounding the Boston Bruins, please subscribe and drop me a like. If news breaks surrounding the Boston Bruins, be sure to check out the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you, and I'll see you next time.